ready to go. Hi guys, my name is Michael Solati. I am an organizer for GDG New Haven, which if you guys have never taken the Metro North towards Connecticut, we're kind of the last stop for that. Anyway, I'm here to discuss what's new and cool and happening, and ignore the question thing because I'm not answering. I don't know why that's there. There we go. I'm not answering questions. Anyway, what's new with Angular that was presented in IO 17? So one of the most exciting things is we recently, I think within the past month, jumped from Angular version 2 to Angular version 4. And during that time, we've seen that our bundled applications have been consistently getting smaller and smaller as we're going through the Angular cycles. The eventual goal, and this is from a Angular community member, the eventual goals, we're hoping that by version 5.4.6, that your bundled Angular applications will actually take negative space. Ideally, well, I'm not promising that, but someone said it will, so I'm excited to that idea. And that didn't get the laugh I thought it would get, so I guess not that many of you are impressed. This is another GDG organizer in Chicago.
That's a good shot.
Who's not impressed, obviously. So the biggest and most exciting thing for me was the progressive web apps coming to Angular. Mind you, you could have done it before. It was a pain in the butt to do it before. And this past year, you've probably seen, I know GDG New York has ran a few events pushing progressive web apps, and a lot of the tutorials have been on doing it with React, or Polymer, which I'm saying, don't do that. Do it in Angular. It's so much easier, I promise you. Now, if you're not familiar with what progressive web apps are, there's a few tenets that exist in the, for your applications. They need to be progressive so that they work for every user regardless of browser, so that kind of involves server-side rendering, so if they don't have JavaScript enabled, it'll show up. Responsive, so it can resize on any device. Connectivity independent, so you're using service workers, so if your application, if their device is offline, they can continue to use the application. App-like, use a good CSS framework that makes it look like a native app, and so on and so on and so on, all these exciting things. Again, can be a pain if you want to get this set up, if this is your first time doing it, but if you already have an Angular app and you're using the Angular CLI, this should be fairly easy. So looking at what we can use, there's a toolkit called the Angular Mobile Toolkit, which includes an app shell, includes the service worker stuff you need, and also for building your application manifest. All these are bits that you need to make your apps go from just a plain website to a progressive web app. Now, when we want to attach our service worker, and again, if you've built a PWA before with not Angular, you're probably familiar with how this works. Ideally, after your application loads, you introduce the service worker, which should cache your component, or cache your application to the device. And so if you've written an Angular application, you're probably familiar in your main TS file that that's where it loads in your application. It might look something like this: platform browser dynamic, bootstrap module, app module, introduces your application. Well, with it, then we can just attach after that loads in, attaching our service worker. And now you're thinking, cool, I have to make a service worker and tell it what I want it to cache. No. Just copy this file over with this command, Angular CLI and the Angular Angular Toolkit. Angular Mobile Toolkit will create your service worker. It'll pick the files that needs to be cached. Need to be cached for you. Easy. So, what about our manifest file? Again, ridiculously easy. Just run this command. It'll go through your application. It'll create the manifest, and it's going to put it in your distribution folder, so when you're ready to deploy your application, it's already done. So you have your service workers, you have your manifest for offline loading, and then there's other components too, like your SSR, which you can use Angular Universal for, and so on. So that was fairly easy. I would invite you guys to take a look at some of these resources. The first URL is the actual 40-minute talk that they gave for it, and you can see, really, if you built an Angular application, if you want to make it a progressive web app, you should be able to get that done within 30 minutes at most. The second slide is a slide by a GDE for Angular. Maxim, I'm not going to pronounce that last name because I'll butcher it. But if you need a kind of step-by-step tutorial as to how to kind of get this going, if the video wasn't enough, that was a really good slide deck that I went through. And the last one is the mobile Angular website. So that was everything from the Angular side. My name is Michael Solati. Have a great day.